So I was able to get a pre-approved offer for the Amex Platinum charge, which gave me a bonus of the joining fees was just of rupees 500 rupees, and it gives me 10% cashback. So that'll give you a 20 rupees return on. I did the math, cut the dead weight, and built a brand new strategy for 2026, distributing my spends across these 4 cards. So if you've been paying attention to the credit card game in 2026, you know that the golden era of the Amex Platinum travel is officially over. So I completely tore down my wallet. I did the math, cut the dead weight, and built a brand new strategy for 2026, distributing my spends across these 4 cards. The Amex Platinum Charge card, the Axis Atlas card, the Swiggy HDFC card, and last but not the least, the Amex Platinum Travel Card. Yes, I still have some use of it. Okay, so now before we get into the exact spending hacks, let me show you the 4 cards that I'm holding and why paying their fees makes mathematical sense for me, at least for this year. So yeah, let's get into that. Okay, quick pause from the editing room. Right after I shot that video, my credit card stack changed. I ended up adding a 5th card to my portfolio for 2026, which is the HSBC Travel One credit card. Now I could not ignore it because it completely breaks the math on general travel spends. So here is exactly how I am routing my money through these 5 cards. Okay, so first the elephant in the room, the Amex Platinum Charge card. Now yes, there is a massive fee of 66,000 plus GST, which comes out to be around, I think, 78k. But the math made a lot of sense for me, at least for the first year. So I was able to get a pre-approved offer for the Amex Platinum charge, which gave me a bonus of 125,000 Amex points, basically 1.25 lakh Amex points, plus a 20,000 Air India voucher. So even at a conservative rate of 80 paisa per point, the points alone are worth 1 lakh rupees. Plus the 20,000 Air India voucher is just a cherry on top. So the total extracted value of the points plus the Air India voucher comes out to be 1,20,000, which is almost double of the joining fees that I'm going to be paying, right? So yeah, for the first year, it made a lot of sense for me. It gave me access to a bunch of offers, to a lot of premium memberships like Marriott, Accor, Taj, and a bunch of other hotel chains, and then preferred rates on Air India, which we'll talk about later. And yeah, it gave me a lot of premium access. It's like, I think, unlimited golf access for me and for my plus one as well. Also, this gives me access to the Amex Reward Accelerator program, which is only for the Amex Platinum and the Amex Centurion card. So that gives me 10x and 20x on a lot of brands, which again we'll talk about later in detail. And then it gives me 5x on the Amex Shopwise portal, which is the new Amex version of HDFC Smart Buy and all that. So basically, it's a voucher ecosystem that you can buy all the vouchers that you'll ever need there, and it gives me around 12.5% there. Also, just for reference, the base reward rate of this card is 2.5%. So yeah, whenever you add a multiplier on top of that, that is where the calculation I'm telling you. Now, next is the Axis Atlas card. Now, this comes with a 5,000 fee, but as a welcome benefit, they give you 2,500 edge miles, and those edge miles transfer to all the partners at a 1:2 ratio. So, for example, let's say if I'm transferring to Accor, that gives me 5,000 Accor points. And now those 5,000 Accor points actually have a value of 10,000 rupees, because each Accor point is anywhere between 1.8 rupees to 2 rupees. So the joining fee is more than taken care of. Yeah. And then next we have the Swiggy HDFC card. Now this card is my absolute daily driver, because the joining fees was just of rupees 500 rupees, and it gives me 10% cashback of up to 1,500 rupees in 1 month. Alright, so the first section is food and groceries. So for my daily driver, I'm using the Swiggy HDFC card for this spend. So I put all of my spends of Instamart, of dine out, even paying dine out bills or food deliveries or grocery deliveries, everything I'm using on Swiggy, and I use this card for all of those expenses only up till 15,000 per month. So basically, this card has a limit of giving you a max cashback of 1,500 rupees per month. So what happens when I cross that 15,000 rupees threshold in a month, right? Either I paid a huge dine out bill that month, or we just, had a party or whatever, or there were a lot of spends, right? So when I cross that 15,000 threshold, so in that case, I switch to my Amex Platinum Charge card. I simply log on to the Shopwise portal, buy Swiggy vouchers, and that triggers a 5x multiplier on this card. So that will give me 12.5% back in points for spends that are greater than 15,000 in 1 month, because since my Swiggy card had already been maxed out. Also, another point that I missed about the Amex Plat is that it has a 25% off on dine out on Wednesdays. Now, this is an offer that you can avail through the District app by Zomato, and when you pay through that, you can get a flat 25% on your dine out bill. I think it's capped to about 5,000 per transaction and up to a maximum of 10,000 in the month. But yeah, it's a very hefty amount, and yeah, if you're going out, you can plan it out on Wednesdays. That'll definitely come in handy. So next up is online shopping. So if you're buying from Amazon, Myntra, Flipkart, or even niche websites like Daily Objects or even jewelry, I am going to be routing all of my spends through the Shopwise portal that Amex has. Now I'm going to be buying vouchers for each of these websites and then straight up redeem them when I'm buying them. The math is simple. The base reward rate on the Amex Platinum is 2.5%. Now when I buy these vouchers from the Shopwise portal, that triggers a 5x multiplier and I'll get 12.5% back in points. Now buying directly from brands like Air India, Tata Click Fashion, Tata Click Luxury, Dyson and a bunch of other brands gives me a 10x multiplier on my base reward rate. So that is basically 25% back in points. So I don't know about anything else, but my flights back home are absolutely sorted with Air India now. Now if you want to take it a step further, there are some luxury brands that they've collabed with for a 20x multiplier. So that is a 50% back in points when you buy directly using your Amex Platinum charge card on these brands. Now this of course will not be a regular spend, but it would come really handy if you're thinking of some expensive gifts that you're trying to give somebody or anything, right? It's 50% back in in points, and I think that is a great value for premium brands. Alright, so next let's talk about the big expenses, the travel expenses, the flights and the hotels that you're going to be booking all throughout the year. So by default for my travel bookings, the Access Atlas was the undisputed king for me for a long time. So whether I'm booking directly on an airline's website or on a hotel's app or through the Access Travel Edge portal, this card will give you 5 edge miles per 100 rupees spent. But here's the crazy math, right? That those points transfer to a 1:2 ratio to almost all of the travel partners, including Accor. So if you're going to be transferring those points, for example, again, let's say Accor, you will get 10 Accor points for each 100 rupees spent. And now those 10 Accor points again have a value of 20 rupees, as we've talked about before in the video. So that will give you a 20 rupees return on 100 rupees spent when transferring to Accor. So like just a disclaimer, I transfer all of my Access Atlas points to Accor. That is why it makes sense for me. But if you don't, then that is a 10% return. Okay, so another sad update from the credit card world after I had shot this video is that Access has officially removed Accor as its transfer partner. Like the entire Accor has been removed from the entire ecosystem from the transfer list for all of the cards, not just Atlas. So that is indeed a very sad news. All the calculations where we just transfer those points to Accor and those doubled in value do not stand true anymore. Fortunately for me, I transferred a chunk of these points last year to Accor, and for this year only a small amount was left. So yeah, but going forward that feature is not available anymore. But hold on, there are some massive caveats where the Amex Platinum charge card comes into the travel category. Now let's talk about those points. So earlier by default I used to put all my travel spends on Access Atlas, but I've made it a point now to stop and first check with the Amex Reward Accelerator program and what kind of seasonal offers it's running. So for example, if I'm choosing to fly Air India, then that gives me a 10x reward on the Reward Accelerator program and that will give me 25% back in points. Another example, if you're booking a Taj property, Amex has this almost constant offer of 25% off on the special member rates even. On top of the member rates, you get 25% off more if you book through the Platinum charge directly on their website. That is also again a crazy offer. Also another thing that I've heard from a lot of people and read online as well is that the Amex travel concierge is a really good place to check out before you do any final bookings, because they have these internal offers that they'll tell you over the phone, which you won't find anywhere else. And yeah, people have gotten really good offers just booking through over the phone through the Amex travel concierge as well. Alright, as promised, stepping in from the editing room again. Alright, so let's directly start with the benefits of the card. As the name mentions, it is primarily completely based on travel. Now, so basically on your flights and hotel bookings, on flights, when you book through their rewards marketplace, again, that is like HSBC's version of HDFC SmartBuy or ICICI iShop, right? So they have their own portal. And if you book through that, on flights, you will get 16 points back on 100 rupees spent. So that is a 16% points back as points. And for hotels through the same portal, you get 24 points per 100 rupees spent. Okay, also another thing to note is that HSBC also offers this price match feature. So basically, if you book through them and within I think 2 days of booking, if you find it cheaper somewhere else, you can mail them with all the details where you're getting this price. And I think the price match up to a delta of 1500 rupees. So basically, you can get a maximum discount on top of what you booked up to 1500 rupees. And yeah, that is also a good feature to have, right? Yeah. All right. So now let's come to the transfer partners for HSBC, like how you are going to be able to redeem these points. First of all, without even transferring, these points are worth 1 rupee each. So when you're in the future booking through their platform, you can burn these points as well and simultaneously earn. So yeah, that is one way to redeem those points. That will give you a value of 1 rupee per point. So a straight 16% on flights and 24% on hotels. And yeah, to the delight of a lot of Indian credit card customers, Accor is also part of those transfer lists. So these points transfer at a ratio of 1:1 to Accor. So as we mentioned a lot of times in the video, each Accor point will give you a value of 2 rupees. And so in theory, that doubles up your returns from 16 to 32% on flights and 24 to 48% on hotels. Now again, this will only work if you have the need of Accor and stuff like that. So for all calculations, I think we should consider the base reward rate only. But if you actually are someone who's going to be able to use this Accor feature, and personally for me as well, it makes sense because I am racking up a lot of Accor points to plan a trip to my brother in the UK and maybe some Europe trip in the coming future. So I am I am racking up points for all that because Accor has a lot of options in in that area in Europe, in UK and stuff like that. Okay, so here's my 2026 travel hierarchy, right? Broken down into these 3 cards. So point number 1, priority 1, whenever I'm booking some flight or booking some hotel, will be to go to the HSBC marketplace. I will look for that flight. If I am getting a good price, which is like not very inflated compared to normal prices that you're able to get on Skyscanner and stuff. Plus, I will also look at whether I have need of Accor points. Then I will be able to maximize it. But even if it's not Accor, right, that'll give me a 16%. All right. So point number 2 is when I have to book Air India. Now this could be multiple reasons. Let's say the route that I'm taking only Air India offers, or Air India is not that expensive compared to other domestic options for the timing and on the day that I'm looking at, because obviously it's a better experience. They give you food and all that stuff. So I prefer Air India. So yeah, if that is also in the same range, and I am not in very particularly in need of Accor points, then I think I will fall back to my Amex Platinum because that will give me a 25% back in points again. Yeah, that is one point to consider. It is in points, 25%. So it's up to you how you are, what value you're able to extract through them. Alright, so point number 3 is the Axis Atlas. Now, many of you will be thinking, then why do I even keep the Axis Atlas now? I think the biggest reason for that is direct offline spends, right? As we mentioned before, Atlas is a great offline spend card because the base reward rate itself is very nice. It's like around 4%. Okay, but even better is that the Atlas triggers its accelerated rewards, which are 5 points per 100 rupees spent, 5 edge miles. Even for travel MCCs, when you swipe directly, right, even at the hotel or for whatever reason, if you're having to book the flight directly at the airport, right? So even then it will be able to give you accelerated rewards because the MCC will be travel related, it will be flight, hotel, etc. So yeah, that means when you're actually taking that vacation, when you're at the hotel reception, checking out and clearing your room service bill or whatever, you can directly swipe that card there physically. It gives you a direct 20% Accor return right there at the machine. If not Accor, then it gives you a direct 10% back in points. So HSBC for portals, Amex Plat for Air India / Taj or the Taj ecosystem, and third is Atlas for the offline direct swipes, right? I think that is sort of my 2026 strategy for travel spends. All right, back to the video. All right, so next let's talk about the general offline spends, places where I cannot apply any of the strategies that are mentioned above. So that is where the Axis Atlas is the undisputed king because the base reward rate on this card is insane. Now the base reward rate on this card is 2%, basically 2 edge miles for each 100 rupees. Now, besides Accor, even though I don't think any other partner can provide as much value, there are still some good options, like Flying Blue, even Air India as a partner, and all of these transfer partners still transfer at a 1:2 ratio. So you'll still be able to get that 10% value when you're like booking through their hotel or through the hotel directly or on their app. Basically, the MCC needs to be travel related, and when that happens, you get the 5 H miles. Those transfer to at a 1:2 ratio to get you 10 partner points, right? Now it's up to you on how and where you transfer and how you optimize those points, but you at least get those 10% back in points, and then you can further optimize it. We can't do the 20% now for a car anymore. Alright, so let's come to the next section, what I'm going to be doing about the rent situation this year. So after the devaluation, I was pretty sad, obviously, because earlier it was quite easy. I just used to load money from this card onto a MobiKwik wallet and pay that UPI that to my landlord. And this is one of the few cards that gives milestone rewards on wallet loads. Optimize my rent spend. The entire past year was based on MobiKwik accepting Amex wallet loads, which does not happen anymore. It is not allowed. So on the MobiKwik app, they do not accept Amex cards for wallet loads anymore. That means you cannot load money onto the MobiKwik wallet and pay the rent to your landlord, and hence my Amex Platinum travel does not make any sense anymore. And by the way, they say that it's temporary and they're negotiating with the Amex and whatever, but it's closed as of now, and there's no news of it coming back on. But if it does, then yeah, that calculation comes back up even after the 4 lakh milestone devaluation. But yeah, for now that's closed, and I'm gonna have to stop doing that. Now there are only a few ultra premium cards that allow rent and give you the basic reward points, the base reward rate for rent as well, like HSBC Premier. Then there's Axis Magnus Burgundy. So since I don't have access to those cards, for me it does not make sense anymore, and unfortunately it's going to be standard UPI payments for me as well for rent now, at least for the foreseeable future. Do let me know in the comments if you still know any hack possible for rent payments. But yeah, that's the situation right now. Alright, so next let's talk about a very regular spend for all of us, which is the fuel spends. If you look at the terms and conditions of almost 99% of the credit cards available in this country, it will have a disclaimer that there are no base reward points or accelerated reward points for fuel spends. But the Amex Platinum charge has sort of like a hidden superpower here. So for the Platinum charge card, Amex has put a 5% return on fuel spends. This return is capped at 5,000 in 1 month. Now this is again not a huge return, but again something is better than nothing. And in fact, I don't even have very huge fuel spends because I own a bike and my fuel spends range from anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 in 1 month. So yeah, but I just swipe that whenever I do refill my tank. Now there's one tip in this is that try to stick to HPCL pumps if you're using the Amex Platinum, because HPCL has a 0% convenience fee on Amex cards. But if you go to Indian Oil or Bharat Petroleum and all that, I think they have around 1% convenience fee for Amex cards. Okay, so for the last very small section is the international spends. So as I've mentioned before, for my basic offline spends where any of these strategies don't apply, I will usually use the Axis Atlas card, but there is an exception to this when it comes to international spends. Okay, so now Amex Platinum gives a 3x multiplier on international spends. Now again, with a base reward rate of 2.5%, that is a roughly 7.5% return in points. Now both Amex Platinum and the Axis Atlas, I think, have a huge forex fee of around 3.5%. plus GST, which comes out to be around 4.13%, something like that. So with the Amex Platinum, if you subtract that 7.5 minus the 4.13, so yeah, so the return will come around 3%. So at least you're net positive in the case of Amex Platinum. In fact, even with Axis Atlas, again with a huge caveat of if you're transferring to a core, then that will give you the 8% return which I've talked about earlier. And now if you subtract that 3.5% forex fees from the 8%, then that gives you 4.5% net positive on international spends. So you don't even have to think about zero forex cards and all that. So you can just swipe these cards and at least you will stay net positive, however much return you will get. Alright, so there you have it. My Regalia Gold for 2026 is benched. The Amex Platinum Travel is retiring, and my 2026 is completely powered by these three cards, right? The Amex Platinum Charge, the Axis Atlas, and the later arrival, the HSBC Travel one. So let me know in the comments what is the one card that you're dropping this year, or the one card that you've added to your portfolio this year. Drop it in the comments below. Subscribe if the math really helped you out. See you in the next one.